All right, let's go ahead and resume the committee of the whole meeting here. We need a motion to come out of recess.
Motion to come out of recess.
Second.
I have a motion to come out of recess from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Moving on to E2, the speed bump discussion, and this is one that I can take the lead on here. I've gotten a lot of comments over the years of the stretch on Dogwood between Whiskey Road and Sixth Avenue being really bad for speeding traffic and that type of thing. And that was actually the road that was the main reason that when we added those signs to the population signs, drive like your kids live here, that was really what I had in mind, was that street. And Troy, who's here in attendance tonight, I'll let him come up and kind of give us, a resident's perspective on somebody that actually lives on that stretch of road. And he had sent me a message the other day and was concerned still about the speeding traffic on the road there, and some different ideas on, what we could do about it and that type of thing. So maybe I'll just let him kind of speak, and then we can take it from there, so.
I want to thank you guys for,
And if you could, Troy, if you can just kind of state your name and address too for the record there. And
Troy Petermeyer, 805 Dogwood Street, Southwest. There's a lot of kids that live on my street, and speeding it's erratic. It's not just fast, it's erratic. There's tons of volume of people coming home from work, leaving work. It's to the point where I think people are just trying to get home, and our road is it seems like it's the end to all the neighborhoods in there. So I talked to all the neighbors, and there's been arguments and fights even about this speeding, because when somebody goes by fast, somebody wants to throw a shovel in front of their car or whatever. I don't want it to come to that. The second thing I don't want it to come to is we're talking about a kid's death, and that's how scared I am. I have two little ones, a 4 and a 5-year-old. We're probably 30 feet from the road from my front step. Somebody doing 40 or 45, you wouldn't want that. That's dang near highway. And they do that. I don't need a radar gun. I don't think slowing down, or a speed sign. I don't think putting it to 20. I don't think that will work. I've thought of a lot of different thoughts, but if they don't listen to the 30 mile per hour, what makes you think they're going to listen to 20? I think a speed bump might be the best route. Then they have to slow down or mess up their vehicle. I don't want to be standing up here saying, hey, this kid died last week, what can we do? And there's a lot of little kids, and it's a growing community. I've listened to you guys all this whole time. This is what we're trying to do, is build this community. Let's not take kids out of it. Let's prevent it. And I don't know other ideas. If you guys have any, I'm willing to listen to anything, but it needs to be addressed.
What are the hours that you're mainly, is it a rush hour type problem you're having, or is that the majority of it?
Well, kids are in school. That's not, or it's all weekend. It's kids when they're out, when they're playing, or when they get off the bus. We literally, me and my neighbor, our kids were getting off the bus. I meet my kid, my youngest, off the bus. And a truck just came flying by. Bus went straight. He had to turn. As fast as that bus moved out of the way, he flew. And he flew because he was probably upset that he had to stop for the bus.
Okay, I personally really like the idea. I'm not sure how well it would work out for Matt. I don't believe a speed bump would cost a lot of money either, and
Have you noticed,
I like it.
how long have you lived there?
5 or 6 years.
Have you noticed in the winter, is it still like that? Or is it not as bad, or have you really noticed?
The kids aren't as much on the street
Okay.
because it's winter.
I'm just wondering if like a temporary speed bump to see if it addresses the issue. You know, you can put out those temporary ones and then in the
That was
winter-
kind of what I was
in
thinking
the
was,
winter, you can pull it out so the plow's not having
Right,
to deal with it.
right.
Just to see if it does anything.
and then there
before they
was,
can-
there's some other questions that we gotta ask Jason there is, because that's, Dogwood is actually a state aid road, so we can put speed bumps on roads that are not state aid, right? But, or can we put them on a state aid road?
It's not state aid eligible, so you wouldn't be allowed to do it on a state aid project or a state aid street.
But we can change what our state aid streets are.
Correct, it's quite a process, and it'd move our funding that we would have been able to spend on that street when we had it scheduled for reconstruction. You know, personally, I don't recommend speed bumps on a public street at all. The only time a speed bump that I've seen it be useful on a public street is if it's the shortcut somebody's using from two more primary streets that they should be using a different street for. But in this case, Dogwood is the primary street. If we put a speed bump there, people are gonna just drive on the adjacent streets, and we're gonna just have more traffic move to other streets. And, I mean, if the speed bumps, you know, if we're talking about one, I guess if we're talking about it, you know, at the beginning of the block, it'll only work for that first 50 feet, and then they'll speed back up to make up their time. You know, if you put it in the middle of the street, you'll need a lot of signage to make sure that they see it's there, because if they don't, and they just break their car, I don't know about lawsuits, but that might have one.
Could we put in a bunch of stop signs?
There's already stop signs.
Is-
I mean, like mid-block?
No,
I
are there,
guess
are there stop signs at every intersection on that street? I know when I was campaigning, that was it seemed like a really long stretch, and there was a lot of through streets connected to it, and I got that feeling from that street too, so I don't know if there's I don't remember if there's a stop sign at every intersection though, on
Well,
that.
There is.
There
They're
is.
long blocks. I mean, they are.
Okay.
That's completely fair, that it's a long, straight shot, at least this first piece, for people to have time to accelerate.
And that's where that's where people are complaining, is between
Right.
Whiskey and Sixth is.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because right after that, you got the curves. That usually slows people down a bit for the next segment. And then there's another long stretch, though, after that curve, so there might be another, you know, run there that might be fast. Personally, I wouldn't recommend going to a speed bump. You know, a temporary one is only gonna work when it's there anyway. So if it was to kind of try and slow people down and then move it somewhere else, well, they'll go back to what they're doing once it's gone. But there are, you know, some other traffic calming things that can be done. You know, the visual appearance of a tighter road can slow people down, or at least make them feel a little more hesitant. Where like if we striped a center line stripe and a shoulder stripe that's only like 11 feet over, so that the actual drive lane feels like it's tight, that slows people down, just in that they don't feel like they have total freedom of this giant wide road. That's a traffic calming element that is pretty easy to do and does have some, you know, good results, more consistent. You know, enforcement, you know, is usually one of the most, you know, applicable ones that'll actually get people to avoid it, but that still really only applies to as long as it's so consistent that it's actually gonna be, you know, reduce the overall speed. Otherwise, it's the same deal, it's only while it's there. Same with those changing message speed signs that we have, you know, they can work while they're there, but, you know, it's not really long-term. You know, looking at this segment, that'd be, the striping thing would be the easiest, you know, most straightforward one to me. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really, the only place, yeah, I just don't see where speed bumps apply in our situation here.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of
more
the
problems
thought
than
process that I was having is, well, if we do it temporarily and we could move, you know, like we did, the sign over the flashing sign and patrol a little bit more, and then you could add the speed bumps as a temporary sort of deterrent, but you're right, I mean, it's gonna continue to be a problem as soon as you pull everything out and you're not there anymore, then, you know, it goes back to that way, so. I mean, how much would it cost to try striping that? I mean, I can't imagine it'd be extremely expensive, I mean.
So, I mean, when we do striping with a street project, which I don't know if we have any on our project coming up, but, you know, we could add it. Looks like it's about 1,000-foot run. You know, if we had to do like the double solid in the middle and then a solid on each outside, that'd be essentially 4 stripes. I mean, it could be $4,000-ish,
It's not that bad.
you know, to try
And when is that due to be redone, though? Is it,
well, I guess that number that I'm given is like the kind of, the better pavement marking material that we use for all of our other streets that have like kind of a, I mean, we've been going 7+ years without having to refresh them. We could do it cheaper, you know, just paint to kind of do it as a test and kind of probably cut that price maybe even in half. It just is something that would kind of wear away in a year or two and would need to keep getting refreshed. So
Yeah.
cost effective wise and amount of effort, that's why we usually go with that slightly more expensive material, but epoxy, but.
well, I was just thinking if we're, do we want to wait, you know, with something that's more temporary until, because I was curious of when it's due to be, you know,
Right.
resurfaced and stuff
Right,
like
so,
that, yeah.
so I believe this is on our 2025, you know, reconstruction schedule. So
Okay.
anything we did now would get,
Yeah, so
know,
for
ripped
right
out
now,
next
maybe
year.
we could maybe just try a temporary, you know, I mean, not temporary, but I mean, not the expensive stuff, because it's only gonna last a couple of years, huh?
Matt, do you guys do any of that striping?
I could stripe it for like $100.
We do, but it's, if there's not a line already there to kind of follow, it's hard. And if you hit a rock or something like that, you'll dip in the road, where, you know, the line goes off and you try to straighten it back out again.
But, I mean, I could see how that could work. I mean, it gives you the feeling that
Yeah.
you're not, you don't have this wide open road, right? I mean, I could see how that might be,
Psychology.
yeah.
I think that'd be worth a shot.
Yeah.
I don't like.
I wouldn't want to spend that much tax dollars on a street that needs to be redone. So
Yeah.
I really don't. If that's where we're at, then forget it.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
Well, but I mean, it would
really
be
do-
nice to just try it and see if it gets the effect we want, and then when they do redo the street in 2 years,
Yeah,
you know, then you know if you want to put it down on that street, you know?
I don't want you to think that you're falling on deaf ears.
Right.
We gotta look at a solution. Trust me, I live on,
when I'm here next time, it is gonna be because the kid got hit. And it's not a matter of how, it's when. It is. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. I'm
agree.
talking for everybody that lives on that street.
And I agree.
And that's the only reason I stayed here. I woke up at 4:30, I haven't ate, I am here after work. Do I look like I went home and showered? No, I am here because I care about everybody on that street because I'm scared. There's times I come home and what if it's the 9th hour of my 10-hour day, I get a call, my kid got hit by a car.
hey,
You guys got people that live on, you got kids? If you have kids and you were living on my street, you would care. And I'm talking for everybody that lives on that street. It's scary. It is scary. We don't let our kids go out on that street. That is horrible.
I live on.
I don't
Salt-
pay the property tax I do to let them not ride a bike on that street.
I live in Ironwood, and I'm telling you, I complain about it all the time.
Well,
But seriously, and it's not just your street, you can, I think Chief Myers can tell you the same thing. There is a constant complaint on all these streets, and it's, I don't know what it was today, if it was something in the air, but I'll tell you what, people drove like lost their marbles today. Just one of the worst days on the highways. So, and that just compounds when you get on the city streets.
Right.
I purposely don't drive fast on city streets. I drive slower than the speed limit to start with, just for that reason, because I see that.
I do too. I drive.
So Jason,
Jason, do you have-
here's a question for you, though. I mean, let's say, because, I mean, I think that the speed bumps, I don't know are a long-term solution. I think what you're talking about, potentially, if it works, would be a long-term solution. So, but in the case of Dogwood there, where it's a state aid road, I mean, can we put temporary speed bumps out there? I mean, by the
That
time
was
we
my
pick them up,
question.
I mean, the state's never gonna know anyway, so.
And how much are those temporary speed bumps, just to see if it works, because you could put a temporary one in and
They're
we
not
could,
very much.
we could
but-
use it in other places too if we needed
Right,
it for events
right.
or, so
But then you gotta have Public Works out there, you know, putting them, you know, leg screws in and all that kind of stuff too, and, you know, that could be a hassle, but,
and I guess I'd strongly recommend plenty of signage on top of it just being there.
Yeah,
If you drive around like Omaha, Nebraska and stuff, they got them everywhere. They're like every single stop sign. They're everywhere. I mean, I remember the first one kind of caught me off guard. My car bottomed out. I was like, well, I should have been paying more attention. So I mean,
Minneapolis has them all along 35 on those side
Minneapolis has 'em.
streets. There ain't no signs.
right?
Me, I
We're
caught it by
bright yellow.
I've
surprise
seen
too.
worse.
Sure, so you just mentioned, I guess, two very specific things of consistency. Like, if we had them everywhere, then we don't need signs, because everybody knows they're everywhere.
Sure.
But, you know, when it's a rare instance, it's just like when you're driving on a freeway and they got a bump sign because something's weird. That's the same type of thing. So I wouldn't, I mean, if you're gonna do it, yes, the answer, you can put a temporary speed bump, I guess, wherever you want. I just don't recommend it, but, as long as it's the temporary thing, yeah, it wouldn't be able to be in or be included in our project for next year when we're reconstructing it. You know, the idea of not spending the money because it's gonna get ripped up next year, you know, I would actually lean on, maybe if we have that speed sign, you know, get that put on this street, so we actually get some data collected and do a little more enforcement and kind of get after that now.
and I think we've already done that, right, Travis? Yeah. Okay,
And that speed sign's there, are we collecting some data on it? Okay, so, I mean, face value, I think that makes sense, up front. Get after that, you know, whether or
Your
not.
data's gonna prove my point.
Yeah, and that's great.
I can 100% guarantee that.
But,
Or 99% is 100%.
so that changing message, or the speed readout sign is gonna slow cars down
Right.
when it's new. And so when we do get it out there, that'll actually help for some, and we get some enforcement going, that'll help. It's just the idea of whether or not, well, we're not gonna be able to stripe it until summer anyway, and then the idea would just come down to that, is it worth it for just that half of a season? Or, you know, I guess the stripes would be able to last through the winter, but then the following year, if we're ripping it all up, it'd kind of be, you know, what can be done between now and when the project's gonna happen. We can easily include the striping with the construction project and have that actually be our permanent, you know, high-quality paint, you know, maybe even the 6-inch wide fog lines that would really make that stand out as a tighter corridor. It'd just be, you know, that interim time, you know, what we do about it.
I kinda like the idea of even if we even left the permanent speed limit sign there, the temporary one, and even got another one to replace it to help. Cause I do agree, I think those speed limit signs, they really do play a role in your head. And I think.
I agree
and I'm
100%.
sure you've ran across them, yeah, I've come across it all the time, and it's like, oh crap, I'm speeding.
I always slow down. I've never failed to slow down for one of those digital signs.
Yep. I,
They actually read, you get information back? Is that?
I think that's.
I don't want them to use it as, hey, let's see how fast we can get on this. You know, because, hey, let's be real, common sense is gone, guys.
Yeah, I won't argue that.
Usually when you put those signs out, it comes with a cop giving out some tickets, so every time you see that sign, you go, where's the cop? Because, there's a little town, a little, you know, and it's not really even a town, but Stark out by Fish Lake, they had one put out there, and for a long time, there was the sheriff right there.
I like the idea. It's more than nothing.
which idea do you like?
That, with the tells you your speed sign.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea to at least, let's see, it's gonna at least catch somebody's eye, maybe slow them down. And if I can get one person to slow down on that road, it might make the next person, you know, one at a time. It's a little at a time. That's all, our street, that's the biggest worry.
And then when that project comes up, I think we should consider the lining
Lines are
for
a great idea too.
the lining for all the streets so that we have speed issues on it, because I think that would be interesting to see. I mean, if it actually works, I believe it does.
I could see it working,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think we should maybe consider that on all the projects.
I think it'd be
If it's-
definitely interesting to just do that for the project and see what result we get, because,
Right.
you know, the speeding in residential neighborhoods and crosswalks are our two biggest issues we have as far as public safety for people in town. It's crosswalks and residential traffic. So would be interesting to see if we, rather than doing every road like that, having
Right.
that road to see if it does actually have a result. So we do have some, you know, something that will last, you know, like speed sign, having an officer sit there. Those don't last, they're temporary, they work, but it'd be nice to have a more of a permanent solution, so it would be interesting to see if that does work.
How about roundabouts? More roundabouts,
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
intersection.
just stop by road at the start and then put a roundabout at the end. We're good.
Okay, so the speed bump idea, are we wanna move forward with something like that? I mean, we can do it, but do you wanna just, what do you think? Do we wanna just start with the speed? I mean, we've got that sign now, so we can get it over there, and so,
Yeah, we just warranted the batteries out, so they should be here tomorrow.
okay, gotcha. All right.
Good
You're
plan.
good with that? I mean, we
Yeah.
start with that, and then I think maybe we should kinda add that to the plan at least for, do we wanna try to temporarily try those lines and see how they work, so we know if we wanna permanently put them on, or do we wanna just wait until we do that project and then
Until we
just
do
add
that
them?
Project, and let's leave that sign up there for a while.
I
So
agree.
he can collect some more data, and then once they do that, let's leave the sign out at that point.
So we see
because
if it's
that's-
working?
So
Yeah.
you, how that's working also.
Yeah.
Good, you can collect data off that sign, so if somebody flies through there at 50,
Yeah,
you have
and
that
you only got
data
about
unloaded.
a week of time, and then, you know, it's a battery-operated system, right? And we can keep recharging them, but we can keep them out there. There'll be some times where it's down, you know, for
It
charging.
would give you something anyway,
If
yeah.
I see somebody pass by, like, okay, like that bus incident, that dude was doing probably 60 to 70 by the time he got up to that stop sign. No doubt in my mind. If I were to, I'm not a cop caller, not against cops at all. That's not my business. I'm not a cop. So if I did want to say, hey, you know, yesterday saw somebody, then you could go and collect that data, and then you'd have it. You know what I mean? Because I'll see. I'm firsthand. I'm dead center of that street. I'm dead center. So I'm like in the worst spot. You know, they're getting going fast by the time, and then they got to slow down. So I'm like at the fastest spot of that road. So I mean, I think it'll work. I think it's better than nothing.
Hey, we appreciate you coming in a lot.
Appreciate you sticking it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We love it when the public comes in.
You bet.
Yeah, I told Troy, I said it makes a big difference,
It
and he was
really
already
does.
planning on coming in, but it makes a big difference when people come in and talk and
I
give
wish
it.
more people would come in.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah, thank you for doing that, man,
Appreciate
and,
what you guys do.
well,
Thank you.
thanks for waiting for us too.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
All right, moving on to E3, the public safety aid.
Well, Mayor and council, or committee, this is just the continuation of that discussion we had a week ago, a month ago. Just continuation, I know that one council member was absent there. Just a little recap, you know, that was the public safety aid that was in the 2023 omnibus bill. And again, how it was calculated is based on population, you know, city of Cambridge, their population, the city of Isani got their population in their matrix, Bram got theirs, and then the county got credit for the city of Isani residents, got credit for the city of Cambridge, and you know, so our residents kind of got double counted for our funding as well as the county's funding. So that's kind of how that matrix played out, if that makes sense. That our residents actually got counted twice. Thought that was kind of an interesting piece of the puzzle. But anyway, so our portion of that's the 307,000. You know, Cambridge got 431, Bram 77, and the county just over $1 million in that funding. So in the last meeting, I gave you that list of expenditures to enhance public safety. That it exceeds that number. I mean, we're about to go through and pick pieces out of there, but those are the pieces that we came up with. And I know Mayor Gordon, we've sat down and went through our budget. Our budget is an operating budget. I mean, it's not, it operates. There's nothing in our budget for this year or even next year for any of these things. So if we don't get it here, like, at least pointed out a few things, like the body camera, the thing we approved today, the cameras, we're gonna buy it anyway, as well as, I'm assuming, if we don't get it on this funding, we're gonna buy it in the next year or two anyway. These are things that we're gonna need to actually do our job. We just don't have that planned in our budget. For example, like the active shooter response stuff, we don't have that. We should, and it's something we'll have to budget for if we don't have this funding. So it's nice we have the funding to try to defer taxpayers from our city property taxes to actually get those pieces of equipment. I mean, that's expensive stuff. That's things we need, but because our budget's lean just for operating, we don't have anything built in there to actually get the stuff that enhances our ability to do those jobs. So that's kind of the recap of that. I know the discussion was laid out as far as fire district. I don't know if he had talked to the county and saw if they appropriated anything or how that went out.
They did not.
They did not talk to him?
They didn't allocate any money towards fire. It was 500,000 in employee retention and 500,000 in sheriff's upgrades, which I think is kind of not doing our community much justice. So I think we should allocate something as a council, but I just don't know the amount, because they do provide a service that helps our community, and that's public safety, so.
And just, like I said, these are the things we need. So if we don't, we'll budget for them, so our residents will pay for them 100%.
Right.
If the fire district needs $50,000 to buy something, if it's appropriated through the fire district board, right, we pay how much percentage of that?
40-some percent, 46?
39.
46. So in essence, so if we both have to buy, they have to buy this, we have to buy this, we're gonna pay for it anyway. Either we're gonna pay 100% of everything we need, and that 54% of what the townships need. So, I mean, that's another way to look at it. I mean, if they need that, it's something they can bring back and actually have us pay, or have you guys pay it through the appropriation for the fire district that we pay out every year. Because then you're paying your portion versus subsidizing the townships.
I just think every community or city that got funding from this, that benefits from the fire department, should have put money in. So I think, maybe it's too late for us to make a statement saying, hey, we're gonna put in some money and maybe you guys should too, because I don't think it's really fair that public safety is, fire, you think public safety and police. I get what you're saying, but at the same point, I think the city of Isani should influence others to do the same thing. I think the county should have put money in. I think every city that got money that benefits from the fire department should have put money in, because we all a part of that, and we all pay our portion of that, so.
I have a hard time taking money away from the police department. I think they should get the full amount of the money. If this was not a district, I would definitely feel different about it.
Right, yeah, right.
I mean, I would be splitting up that money. If anybody, if any township would have stepped up and offered something, or the county,
Right.
nobody stepped up, and I don't see why we should. I'm not opposed to doing something for the fire department as far as, well, we already, don't we pay for all the security at the rodeo?
Yeah, so the council did approve that donation to the fire for the rodeo, and I think line item is around $9,000 is what you line item out of there. And then last year you approved the hairball security as well. I think that was around $4,000 donation.
So, we already donate our own money to the fire department. I'd love to see them get half of the money, but it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I'm not thinking half or anywhere close to half. I was thinking like 20,000 or something. But I just think it's sad that the rest of the community and the leadership in our community didn't decide that they want to give any money to fire. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. So,
Steve, what do you think? You're on the fire board committee.
Well, I have to take off my fire district hat when I have this conversation with the city. If you look at it, just take $20,000. So if we were to say, okay, we're gonna take $20,000 out of his budget to purchase this stuff, in a year or two, we're gonna have to purchase it at the city and our taxpayers at full value, $20,000. We send it, then if we didn't and said, I'm sorry, Isani Fire District, there is no money, available to give to you. Out of that 20,000, we're paying $9,000 or $8,000. So I'm doing, my thinking is, I'm doing my residents a greater justice by saying, I'm sorry, Isani Fire District. Right?
I agree, but.
That's,
yeah.
and I do hold the fire district very dear and near to my heart, because I used to be a fireman with this. I also feel that the townships should be doing something. They could have just as well went to the county and said, hey, listen, all this public safety aid money, where is ours? Where is our portion of it? I'm not saying that it's, I'm not saying that the police department is more important than the fire district, by no means. I don't want anybody to understand, I want everybody to understand that. But I have to look at it as our taxpayers. They're getting more bang for their buck for going to that fire department, for that police department. Plain and simple, the shooting in Burnsville. Burnsville should have never had, I mean, you wouldn't think in your life that Burnsville would have this issue. This stuff is moving further and further out. It might be next week it happens in Isani, and if they're not prepared for that kind of an incident, which some of this money is going to purchase, without our tax dollars going into it as a property taxpayer, what are we doing for them? If they can get their, as some of it's been said, their shiny new little things to make them operate better without digging in the taxpayer's pocket, I feel that's where it needs to go. That's, I don't want to be the bad guy. We got two firemen sitting here right now. I do everything I can for that fire district in those meetings. I don't come back here, I say, okay, if I say he's fine with it. I don't come back here and say, guys, we need to discuss this. Because that's very important, that is a big part of it. And I'm not trying to pit the fire department against the police department. By no means, they should be working hand in hand. But then again, how this money was divvied up, they should have been smarter somewhere down the line to saying X amount goes to here and X amount goes to there. I just feel that, I think that money needs to go to our fire department, or police department. Just for the simple fact that it's gonna save our taxpayers money in the long run. If we have to give the fire district more money, or that 43%, 4%, whatever it is, I'd rather give that than 100% of it. Because it's gonna have to happen sooner or later.
Makes sense.
This is how I feel, and it's tore. I feel I'm put on the spot on this, because I don't wanna be,
Feel the
I
same
don't wanna
way.
be the bad guy to the fire district, but yet again, this is something that the city needs itself. I have to treat the two as two separate entities. It's a fire district. It's a conglomeration of 7 entities, and that one entity shouldn't be the one that always does that. We have donated a lot more than just that to the police protection at the rodeo and at the hairball and all that. We've also ponied up other things where we've discounted it to the fire district for items, so the townships didn't have to cover it, but you don't see anybody saying you did that for us.
So maybe it's time we ask the county or the townships to try to step up too. You know, there's money allocated, where's money allocated and where did it go? You know?
Well, and that's, and not at 100% fault with Chief Jankovich, he should have addressed the county on that level also, because those townships are part of that county, part of that sheriff's department, where they should have been able to give some of that money to them also. We did, didn't we give some, that PPE money also to the fire district? Didn't we do something with that?
Oh, during COVID?
Yep.
Yes.
And we did that, but nobody said that we did that for them, when the townships didn't do any of that.
We bought them and gave them donation items in the amount of about $24,000. We didn't give them cash funds. We helped outfit their Station 1 with some digital, like a smart board or something, and some PPE stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, we did do that when we didn't have to. So I think that, you know, the city has done their due diligence with the fire district to that point. I'd love to give them that money, but it's our taxpayers, who you and I and every one of us sitting up here have to answer to. If they know that it would be 100% of that money that they're gonna have to pay in, or 40% of it, I think they'd rather take the 40%. And not, you know, I'm guaranteeing you, this community rallies around that fire district. There's a lot of people in this town that think very highly of this fire district.
And that's kind of why I don't want people to think that we don't by not sharing it, because it is public safety, fire and police go hand in hand, so.
I agree 100%.
But yeah, I agree with what you're saying too, Matt. Fiscally, it makes more sense, but morally, you know, it's like,
But
it's a
morally-
tough one, yeah.
But morally, we have given the
Right.
fire district things when other people didn't, and we didn't have to.
Jimmy and Jeff, what are your thoughts on this? I know you've kind of remained quiet, but it'd be,
I said from the beginning, I want to stay out of this one. I don't want there to be any implication that I'm
okay.
picking a side on it. And, you know, I think, I guess one thing I could say when I said this last time, if there was something that could be a mutual benefit to the police department and the fire department, I could see that money being something that you could justify. Otherwise, I think if, to your guys' point, that if the county were to say, okay, well, on behalf of the townships, we'll contribute some money, that maybe you could match some of that, I guess, maybe would be one approach, I guess, but yeah, I think that would,
agree.
but that's as far as I want to dig into it, so
That's fair.
but that gives you kind of a little bit of, at least feedback, I guess, but.
I said my piece last time, so.
Okay.
So how does this get resolved?
I mean, I don't think we're looking for, you're not looking for any action tonight, Travis. I mean, right, the money's gonna be there. I mean, it's gonna be, we'll utilize it and stuff as we see fit, right, Mike? I mean, that's kind of the plan. I mean, we don't have any timetable that we have to use it by, I don't think. It was,
No, and, you know, we'll keep it segregated and track it, but
Right.
it is helpful for Travis and I to be able to know what we're planning for, because there are gonna be some items where, yeah, we're gonna go buy it, and then you're gonna order it, and it arrives in a week, but there's gonna be other stuff where it is not that simple, and you need weeks or months lead time if you intend to have something in place by a particular date.
so you'd like these guys to give you a little sense of direction at least, and.
I would
on
say-
how to move
Even if it
forward.
was, all right, we agree that, you know, we're not sending money to the fire district, and Travis and Mike come back and say, how and when is this gonna get spent? And get the council to say yes or no, or, you know, but that helps a lot with the planning, for sure. And especially as I'm you know, in not very long, we're gonna start the budget process for 2025. And understanding what we expect to have spent out of that 300,000 may very well help inform what the future capital improvement plan looks like, or what years certain items fall in. That's gonna be useful information. If we leave that to sit until October, November, that's gonna be a lot harder to move those pieces around.
I guess I would say, I feel pretty confident saying that most, if not all, would probably go to PD, but I think, in my perspective, I think just to send a message to the rest of the leadership in the community, we should give at least something, a couple $1,000s to fire, because we need to somehow encourage others to, I guess, step up. We can't just sit here and talk about it and not do something about it. In my eyes, I mean, a couple $1,000s to fire, but if not all, to PD, I think is fair. In my eyes, I don't know. But we can't just sit here and talk about it and not take any sort of step to help change, in my eyes.
I guess this would be one of those times where the only thing I've ever asked of the council is I get to say my piece, and then council makes their decision, whether I like it or not, I get on board. That's how that works, and I appreciate that. On this item, I think the fire district is a super great asset. I mean, and it's a wonderful arrangement. And one of the things that I think is really fantastic about it is it's one of those rare instances where a large group of people get together and say, we need to fund this thing, and we all actually agree on how we're actually going to fund it. Most people get their tax bill and they're like, this is BS. By default, that's the standard deal. But to have this many people, this many townships, everybody get together and all nod their head yes, year after year, that yes, this is a funding mechanism that we're all on board with. That's a fairly rare thing. If the fire district feels that they need something, I would love to just see it be in the budget. I would love to see that bill come and pay the city's share and go forward like that. I think it's a really fantastic way to have a fire department set up. I don't think we should change that for the world, but I think that's a really fantastic way to do it. And I think that if Al or other board members feel like there is something, this $64,000 piece of equipment or whatever it is that they really need, like, let's go get it. Let's split it up the way we've already agreed is how we're gonna do it and move forward.
And that's pretty much what I do on the fire district board when I'm there, is I generally do not fight anything that they ask for, unless it's ridiculous. And that's just how I feel. I think we have given to that fire district more and more and more than you think. I mean, sit down and Mike Becker can tell you how much our checks are every year to the fire district, what we pay. And it's a lot more than you think.
But I still think we should make a point. They spend all that money at the county on the sheriff's office, and I still think we should make a point.
But right now, that point's already done, because the sheriff's office isn't gonna give anything out.
You never know.
I doubt it very highly.
Well-
They've already addressed their issues.
Yeah.
And they've probably already rolled out the check.
I got a question. Last time, the fire chief asked about the payment, or reduction in the payment, or forgiveness of the payment. Where does the payment go in our budget? Does it go into savings, or does it offset other costs?
That money, it goes into Fund 920, that's where it's accounted for. It stays in Fund 920 and it funds future capital.
Okay.
And we do count on that money.
That money actually went to purchasing the new police department building.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
And I should say too, Al was here, he would have liked to have spoke on this, I think, but they had a couple fire calls come in while he was sitting here, so, so just so you guys know why he's not here, but he was trying to be here.
I guess I would make a motion, or I guess we're not motioning this one, but I would really like to see us give at least something, just to make the statement that we stand behind fire, and we wish that everybody in the community would sort of give some, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, I think, I guess the consensus then, I mean, if I'm reading everything right, would be to kind of maybe come back with a plan that we can take some action on, and, and then I think, what Luke is saying is that if Al were to go to the county or the townships and, but I think Mike made a good point too, that if it needs something, then we can always budget for it and do it that way, of course, too, so. But I get what you're saying too, Luke. So I think at this point, though, the general consensus, or at least the direction, would be to get a plan on how we can utilize that money for the police department and move forward with that, so. Okay. Let's see. So next we have the Isantian reformat. And let's see, who's gonna take the lead on this one?
I will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So one of the things that was discussed in the goal-setting session was for our Isantian, our newsletter, to get out more, to reach a broader amount of people by maybe doing some kind of mailing version. So Julia Cederberg, our Parks and Events Coordinator, did a fantastic job of putting together some options. So I'm going to recap those. You have some printouts in front of you. The first I want to start with is what we currently do for the Isantian. That is 4 pages, double-sided, folded, stapled, to give us a total of 8 pages. Currently, we're not mailing that out. I will tell you, back before we made that change, we used to mail them out to every resident, and we used to budget at that time about $14,000 to have that done, printed and mailed. Postage is kind of what gets you. Right now, we estimate that if we were to ever consider going back to mailing out that full version, about $20,000. So we didn't put much together on that because that is a very high cost and we don't have anything budgeted. For that current version that we do, though, we do upload it on our website. We do link it to Facebook. We do make it available here at City Hall, so if people come in to pick up or to pay their water bill, they can pick it up here, but we don't actually mail it out anywhere. So one of the options that we have as option one for a reformat is to go with a twice a year, one-page flyer, front and back. This is the one that has, well, obviously just one page. The spring, summer edition would have a calendar that had all of our upcoming dates on it. And on the front, you would have a very condensed version of the Isantian. So it doesn't have a lot of information. This is a negative of this format, but it definitely is an affordable option that we can look into putting into a newspaper, which was one of the suggestions at the goal-setting session. You don't get as much information here, but you are reaching people. So if you look at your option one draft, you see that we can choose between regular paper, glossy paper. I'll talk about the regular paper as the cheaper option. If we went with the County Star to print it, it's about $190 to have them print enough. That would go out to all residents within the 55040 zip code. So this is going to reach broader than the City of Isanti residents, but the cost to put this one-page flyer in there is really affordable, just under $100, so $96.72.
Twice a year.
And this is twice a year.
But that would be, so it'd be about $200 a year.
$200 a year, yes. This is per time, per edition. And we did it with having spring and summer as we took a look into what we put in for information. We did see that we had some redundancy. We wanted to make sure that our content is new. And you'll see in the section in the center on this one, it's in the other longer version as well. We have something new called the Council Corner. One thing that I really wanted to get out to our residents and businesses are the code and zoning changes that we make. If you're not following council, following the meetings, it's really hard to know. So this is a very condensed, short, bulleted list of things that they may care about or want to know if they're building a shed or something like that. So a couple times a year, we'd put in the most kind of hot topics that would be impactful to people. Option two, and then I'll go back through questions. Option two was to not put it in the newspaper, but actually to do a postcard option. So the postcard option gets into the hands of everyone, has a little bit of information with our events for the spring, summer edition. We do this twice a year as well. And then it has the QR code. So the negative on this is that we are asking people to use that digital platform to scan this to get the most information. But the positive is that they know that something's out there that they can get more information about. Downfall of this one is the cost for printing these out and postage is pretty high. So we have to do an online service. It's about a little over $1,500. And the biggest cost, as you can see there, is that postage. Getting that to every resident and business in town is about $1,000. So it really does add up fairly fast. Then the third option that we have is the two-page, 4 sides. This is kind of a little bit longer, but not as long as what we've been doing. What we felt is that this would be a version that could be sent out in the mail, and it would fall within one postage stamp for bulk pricing. So for that one, we have, we're still getting some cost on it, but roughly about $3,400 would include the printing of it through a printing service as well as mailing it to every business and resident. That is assuming bulk pricing for postage and having the printing company do a folding into the envelopes. We don't have a folder here at City Hall. The benefit of this one is you get more information, so that longer version, and this is just a draft, so it'll change, but getting those dates and events out there and great information from our departments is able to go in there, similar to what we've done before, but making sure it's really great content that isn't redundant. Keeping that council corner, and then the mayor's memo is on this one because there's space for it, and we've done that for a number of years.
I like the QR code. Could we maybe add the QR code on the back of the calendar side of option one if we were to go with that? I really like this calendar. I think that's a cool thing that people might hang up on their fridge, but if we were to have a QR code on that side as well, so when it's hanging on the fridge, if they want a QR code quick to something, Is that something we could just add to this?
We could, we debated going back and forth of creating this shorter version, but then using a QR code actually to link to a longer version. The downfall of that is that staff is basically making 2 newsletters. However, if we go to doing it twice a year instead of 4 times a year, which we used to do it quarterly, it is about the same amount of work as we used to do.
Well, I think what Luke is saying though is if you could just have like a link, a QR code could just take you to an interactive calendar where you could, because like, I mean, this is showing you that, yeah, that's a street dance on, you know, whatever day the pink
Oh,
circle is on.
sorry,
But
yeah.
if you wanted to know who's the band and
specifics
what
or-
time does it start,
Yeah.
Definitely, yep.
then, you know, that's what Luke's saying, right?
Addition to the
Yeah.
calendar, yeah.
Yes, that would be very simple to do, and it can link right to the Parks and Recreation
Yep.
website, or, you know, website page, but then they can navigate to find the other information.
And then we could track it and see if anybody's actually using the QR code before we spend a bunch of money sending them out in the mail. I mean, I think option 1 gives us the most information, most bang for the buck, personally.
Yeah.
I thought it was great when I first.
And I
saw it.
think if you actually wanted to mail to all the residents in town, that number seems pretty low to me as far as like 2,050 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's more like 2,800 homes if you can count the PO boxes, but.
It's the ones that they serve. So it's the ones that, the County Star, that's how
Well,
many
but-
they.
Well, but I'm saying the numbers on our mailing estimates. And I was gonna,
Households.
Bill, is
Yes.
that 2,015 homes in the 5504? That seems a little low too, I thought, but. Yeah, that's not your department necessarily, is it?
And for on option 3, that 2,050 for the quantity was a quantity that was put into the quote. So not necessarily that's what our quantity would be, but to give an idea if that
Sure.
is what we did.
Yeah,
Then,
but I
because
think.
we haven't mailed to all the apartments in the past, and the apartments, we've just had those printed, and then we put a stack
Okay.
within their entry commons way. So we don't actually have postage for anyone in our apartment buildings.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
I still like option 1. I think the QR code in ours would be perfect. It's cheaper, gets the information out.
Yeah, and I think it's just something in print form that I think that's really what the main goal was to just have something that people could hold in their hand and look at again, so.
And people will hang this on their fridge. I'll be hanging it, I guarantee it. It's nice to have
Yep.
something simple like that.
If we go with option 1, I would suggest taking off the water tower on the map side, moving the mayor, actually giving the mayor some room, and put the council corner above and below that, and then that will free up some more space on the front. And then you would still have room to put that barcode somewhere, even on the back page.
Yep.
I kinda like the water tower there, but maybe not.
I do, but I mean,
For you to write letters.
I know. Well, I gotta do this. They're waiting on me to do this right here, so.
I would like to
work
see
to
as
do.
much print as possible on it, that's the only reason.
Or
I
just,
mean,
maybe
we
just
have-
an overlay over that, leave the water tower, but do like a black font of a text.
I really do love our water tower.
Yeah, I think
But
it's a
I do
nice-
agree, we can do some modifications. Everybody knows I love our water tower, but this is just a draft. We didn't want to spend too much time. I mean, Julia spent a lot of time on this, but we didn't want to spend too much time until we kind of knew the direction, and then this will get tweaked. These
I
are
think
just
the
drafts.
general idea on this though, I like, and I like the price point, you know, just to get a printed
too.
thing that people can hold on to. And I like only doing it twice a year, because it does get redundant. I mean, I have a tough time, if you do it every quarter, it's hard to come up with ideas to even write about something that's new from 3 months ago, because it just takes time for things to change, so. So yeah, no, I think this is, that twice a year, I think would be a good deal, so.
Okay, and it is good, I like with the QR code too, driving more traffic to our website, which is where we have so much information, like when we get to projects and summer season, we have a lot on there that people probably don't know is there. So if they're getting driven to there, maybe for the street dance band, they get to find that other stuff too.
One more thing I'd like to see is a quote on just a little bit heavier paper, if it's that much of a difference.
Yeah, that's just glossy though. Yes, we can get that and see if it's not much more.
I mean, it's a little, if we can, just a little bit thicker might make a big difference, if it isn't that much more money.
I had a question. Could we get this QR code on our water bill?
We
So
have
the
talked
water
about
bill
that.
has a very small, what do we figure, how many characters was it? It's basically a sentence,
I-
right? That we can modify?
I am not so sure I can do that. I think if we want to go to like, if we want to switch to full page, sure. But I'm not so sure I have,
Enough room.
We had that
And I'm-
discussion like
yeah, and
about
I'm not-
6 months ago. Yeah, it was
and I, yeah, I mean, nobody likes the postcards, right? We had the postcards, same kind of postcards in Granite Falls as well. And we did undertake the very large cost annually to switch to full page bills. But on those little cards, it's a very limited. I can look into it, but I'm trying to think on the back end on my software.
Yeah, just a QR code.
Yeah.
As long as you mention,
Is everything else that I can print on the back end, right? So I can go into the software and I can modify the template, right? Everything else I'm either directly putting text or I am using, I'm basically using formulas to look into the SQL data tables on the server and deposit data. Maybe I can make an image.
Sounds like,
Maybe I
or it looks like the wheels are turning in your head.
Maybe
so
I
I'm sure
can
you'll
do,
try
maybe I
some
can do
stuff.
it, maybe I could do it just as an image. I don't know how big I can make it, but
they only need to be
Just
yeah.
big enough to
inch by half
scan it.
inch, I believe.
Yeah. I'll have to look into
I
that.
think that'd be a really great idea.
Yeah.
We send it
I've
out
got-
anyways, and I know there's a little bit of space on the back.
Let me look into that.
It's off topic, but a lot of people pay them water bills 2, 3, 4, 5 months at a time, but you still send out the water bill showing a credit. Can we stop that? I mean, because you were talking about expense, sending out these cards, and is there a way to put it in the software that if it's paid up for 3, 4 months or a year at a time, that we don't send them a postcard?
good point.
How many people actually do that? George
I
obviously
do
is
it,
one of them.
obviously.
Because we have ours set up on automatic payment at our house and it
Yeah,
just
to
goes,
be honest, I
but-
don't have that many people that are paying multiple months in a row.
I
However,
definitely don't.
those that do, it's not a one-time thing. That is how they do it over and over for years. That is
Yeah.
Right.
definitely how that works. But it is definitely a small minority on that. But
All right.
I do like that idea because I do have other people that, they think they're getting the late fee but they paid on time.
It's confusing.
So they have a $5 credit. Well, then they send they get into a cycle where they don't notice it's a credit and they have a $26 credit. Well, they send a check for $26. Well, now you got a $54 credit. Well, not
There is
sending a bill on
confusion
a
with
credit
that.
would.
I've gotten one person
Yeah.
that said that about that before.
I will look into both those things. We'll see what we can or cannot do on that.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, for the SCNN, I think option one, we'd like to move forward on that, so.
Yeah, this is an unbudgeted expense, but given the dollar amount, I mean. we're
And this
under
was
time-
like per time, right? Was,
Yep, so that would be
so we're
double.
talking maybe $500 for the year to do it twice or something like that?
I'm gonna assume so, but we'll get a hard definite quote that includes the pound paper, make
Okay.
sure it's color, all the different items broke down. Given the timeline, because we want to get this out soon, if the consensus is okay for us to move forward, we'll do an after effect resolution on it, but keep moving forward with this and, so we can get it out.
Okay. All right, moving on to E5, the Illuminate Isani 2023 recap and 2024 planning discussion.
Okay, good evening again. Probably sick of hearing from me already tonight. Okay, just looking at the overview, for 2023, we actually had 2023, we had 8 nights for 3,199 tickets sold, for a total ticket revenue after tax of $23,411. In 2022, it's actually 9 nights, for 3,833 total tickets sold and a total ticket revenue of $26,201. George did ask for total attendance daily. So I did do the comparison there. In 2022, we had a total attendance of 4,224 people. And then in 2023, we had a total attendance of 3,820 attendees. Both years, the largest days were Saturdays, with the first Saturday in 2022, which was comparable to the first Saturday. It was the 10th in 2022 and the 9th in 2023. 2022, we had 850 attendees, and in 2023, we had 622 attendees. Both the largest nights were the second Saturday, which was the 17th in 2022 and the 16th in 2023, for 792 in 2023 and 981 attendees in 2022. Overall, you can see that most of our dates stayed the same with the days of the week. Our lowest day in 2022 was Tuesday with 58 people. That night was actually really cold and raining. Yes, we shut down early. Like, we were surprised 58 people showed up in the rain. And we did have some more rain days this year. And so we did have that on our biggest day, which is Saturday of this year. So we were happy to see the 792 people show up in the rain this year. So just move on from there. But the dates definitely ebbed and flowed as we thought, with the Friday and Saturdays being the biggest, just as they were last year. Sorry, I'm pulling up my rate sheet. We were blessed with a lot of monetary and in-kind donations in 2023. We received over $22,000 in monetary donations from businesses and sponsors, and a grant, including a grant to cover the marketing and advertising for the event from Explore Minnesota, for $2,429. And then we also received a lot of in-kind donations as well, in the total of $22,750. The overall budget for the year was $48,820, and that was presented in early 2023, and that's what was approved by council. The initial Illuminate Isani costs were $36,161, and what the city spent on all of the items you'll see budgeted in your packet. So that was what we expected our expenses to be for last year, and then their line item to match exactly how much we spent. We did have the berm removed from the park to make that area larger, which was an in-kind donation of $10,500, as well as vendor shed materials and labor donated of $7,500. So that's where most of the in-kind donations come from, which was really great. Ticket revenue for 2023 was, like I mentioned, the $23,411, and then vendor revenue was $1,000. So total costs after those revenues for that original budget of $48,820 was $11,750.46. Additionally, the budget was approved for that original $48,000, $820. But on top of that, council also approved the purchasing of fencing for all years, as well as sound equipment, because the renting of those items was much higher to continue to do that year after year. We also realized that sound equipment for the amphitheater was necessary for us to continue using it more often, so we actually have used it already more than just for this event. As well as the fencing we have used somewhat for Jubilee Days events, and I can see that being an asset to us in the future as more, speaking with some event promoters in the area, they would love to have the amphitheater is well loved by event planners, and so a lot of potential with having fencing for them to hold ticketed events also within our space. So those were, I believe, good purchases, but it brings the total expenses in 2023 to the $30,192.59.
So that is in the red. That's the number that we went in the hole this year.
Yes.
Okay,
How much?
30,000.
30,000, and that includes the fencing and the sound.
Got it.
Okay, so that expense we will not have next year, but
Correct.
we don't know how much we'll have in donation either.
Correct, that is.
Hold on here, that's, I think, this, to me, this is confusing, and
It is
I'm-
very
Sorry.
confusing.
And I'm somebody that I feel like is pretty good at this, so, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I mean, I
do it.
I do practice this on occasion, so, so Mike, can you kind of, because I mean, with the budget is 48,000, and then we got all this donation money, and then so I mean, it just kind of goes back and forth, and you know,
So-
we're counting things that we spent as expenses, but we also got them back in donations.
Correct.
And so,
So it's the easiest way to lay it out to show you exactly where money came from. But, so out of that $48,000 that was originally budgeted, after all of the revenues and vendors, the city spent $11,750 of that. So that was what we were in the red after that 48,000. Because it was a separate budget line item on the resolution, I wanted to break out the fencing and the sound equipment.
okay,
So that is another expense on top of that 11,000 that we spent of
Okay.
that 48,000.
so we had budgeted 48,000, and we only spent 30,000. Right,
Yes,
so we're not in the whole 30,000, we actually have 18,000 left over that we didn't spend.
Correct. We
Right,
didn't spend
so-
that of,
Can I ask a simple question? How much of this was taxpayer how much of this did the taxpayers have to pay?
The only, well, let me
That's the
kind
line item I
of, the
wanna
way
know.
that I understood it, and I don't know, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but the 48,000 is basically what was in the account after last year was done. So we didn't put any more seed money in or anything like
No.
that. We said, well, you can take donations, you can use the money that's here in the, you know, the nest egg that you built from the year before, and that's how we were gonna go forward, right? Am I,
So this is Fund 228, Special Revenue Fund. It is in the hole, right? And it's like 6 figures in the hole.
well, right, from the
and s-
original,
and so
from, yeah.
And Luke had brought this up at, I don't remember how, probably last year at this time or something like that, maybe. We, in our daily lives, we're used to economic or accounting transactions that start and end very near each other, right? I go to a gas station, I take the candy bar, the dollar changes hands, blah. Start and end was very close. In this scenario, this is a particularly long transaction. And until you get to the end, you can't definitively say how much of this is tax dollars. If we pull the plug today, right now, we say, we're done. That's what we're in the hole, that's tax dollars. If you run it out and it starts to make money, it funds itself, then I didn't spend any tax dollars in the end. But I won't know until I get to the end of the transaction.
So Luke, we just kind of clarified when you, I don't know if you could hear it out there or not, but, so we didn't actually, we're not 30,000 in the hole, which I think is what we had just said before you walked out, was we spent 30,000, so I mean, there's really 18,000 or so still left over from last year's budget. So after we got donations and after we
Okay.
spent so I mean, that's correct, right?
That's my understanding. I'm also going to apologize. I did not get particularly involved in this audit.
Well, and it's
Kinda-
hard, it's very, I
Odd-
understand why it's hard to explain, and that's
Yeah,
not,
I would-
anybody's fault, because it is very,
guess-
getting money from all these different spots, it's hard.
I would like to look at it closer before I mean, if we're gonna decide if we're doing it again this year or not, I would like to look at these numbers closer, because my whole thing was I don't wanna keep spending money on this. Now, the way I see it is we went 30,000 over what we were originally gonna spend, if I do the math just quick, but I could be way wrong. So,
I guess,
I'm looking at it.
we spent $30,000 this year.
okay.
Right,
From
and
that
we- And we
account.
budgeted to spend 48, because
So
48
we
was,
spent less than what we budgeted for. We didn't
48
do
was
that.
essentially what was the profit, or, I mean, it wasn't, well, I guess it was the donations and the ticket sales from last year, let's call it that, right?
Because you're
was
never
the-
guaranteed ticket sales or
Right.
donations. Like, we
Sure.
can project what we can, but
Well, good job if that's the case.
So that's what, where the 48 was from. Well, So yeah, so I guess that's the question is now, you know, you spent 30,000, but what did we add to that, I guess? Cause you have revenue, so I mean, can you get,
That is all, that's the bottom line, is so
Okay.
we spent 30,000 after all of the revenue this year.
okay, gotcha. So all the revenue is already, so you have 18 left, basically.
Yeah.
If we, because our goal was to say, okay, if we, whatever we had sort of in there is what you can use to grow it, and we didn't want to put any more money, go further into the hole or anything like that,
So we spent
right?
30,000 after revenue, so we'd win in the hole 30,000.
Well,
Correct,
That's what it
yes.
would be.
So we,
Yeah, that's what
that's
it
not,
is.
no, because that's not,
we budgeted 48,000.
right. Let's say you had 48, you added all your donations, and so total, if 48 was your, what's the line? I mean, that would be kind of a line, how would you describe that, Mike? If 48 is your.
Total expense? Operating
Yeah,
expense?
so, but then you're adding your donations to it, then you're taking out what you spent, so now you're 30 below the 48 line. So you have 18 left, sort of, in a sense. But the whole thing is in the hole.
I think the way, yeah, I think the way you're thinking about it is kind of the difference between gross versus net. Is,
So,
yeah, and I would apologize again. Like, I'm been very into the audit, which is what I have to do at this time of the year, so I did not get particularly involved in this. But
I would definitely like more clarification on this before we do
yeah,
anything.
that's what I was just
'cause
gonna
this is-
suggest is a month from now, I will be done with my audit and I can come back. Already looking at this, I already have some ideas about how I would have presented it a little different
No, that's
from a
fine,
finance
yeah.
director's
but
perspective.
it's not, Stephanie's doing the best she
Yeah,
can
no,
to
no,
explain it in
Oh,
a way that
I
makes
agree.
sense. And I think she's doing a good job of it, because it's
I
making
agree.
sense to me, so.
I just want to make sure.
Oh, the
yeah.
total amount currently that budget sits at is, we have spent after revenues, 145,000.
So that's what it's in the hole.
From the
That's
beginning
from day
of
one.
2021
Right.
through this year. So we added $30,000 onto that. So we added 11,000 of that 48,000. But then the confusing part really comes from that additional amount that we budgeted from the sound equipment and the fencing. So,
Which has been used for other things.
yes, which can be used for other things. So that's,
So if we're not gonna put new money into it, how much money do we have to start next year?
Well, that's
if
that's the
we-
answer I'm trying to get
If
to. And
we
what I think the answer is you have
chose-
18 for next year, plus the donations that come in. And then you'll have revenue from next year as well, right? Mike?
That is how council wants to
yeah,
direct
it's
it. I think
however you guys,
I want to stop putting money into it.
Well,
I
I
thought
think,
that
I
was-
think we did.
I thought that was the goal.
I thought.
So I
you
guess
did.
that's a question for you. So the 145, it's your bottom line. What was that at the beginning of the, because that's actual dollars that we've committed from taxpayer dollars. So at the beginning of when we started to do the whole project, what was that number? And then what is it after this year? Because it should have it should be less theoretically, right?
it is not less yet.
So the intent was, at the inception of this event, is to not use taxpayer dollars, but to have it pay itself back in 5 to 7 years. So the plan is to slowly creep out of this whole plan after we've invested some money to get it grand, to get those people to come in to buy tickets that are gonna offset it, but we are gonna be in the red, which was what was known, not kind of, it was known to be in the red for about approximately 5 to 7 years. So then every year, we're gonna bring it back to council, say, well, how much do you want to put into the operation? Do we make it better? Do we keep it the same? What do you want this event to look at like? Because if we were on the same trajectory of how this thing started, it was to keep investing a little bit, making it better and better and better until it's just so great. At 5 years, it's starting to pay itself back because we have so many people coming.
Why is the city in business with this?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that,
I mean,
why I understood what we did last year was that we said, okay, we had this revenue from 48,000 that was left over from the previous year, in a sense, right? Is how I thought we were doing it, and is that right or not?
I believe that that's right. I
That
think
was-
what staff had done is they put together here's what it will take to operate this event for year 2.
So you're telling me like the end of last year, we were roughly 100,000
Yes.
Yes.
in the hole, and now we're 145?
Yes.
Well, that's gotta stop.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought
Yeah,
this whole time we had brought in revenue last
So
year.
did I.
Screaming about this since
So have I.
day one
So have I.
about this. If you're,
Well,
if you're gonna spend.
didn't you think that's what we did last year, though?
I thought we were just gonna
You were
cover,
here, but-
I thought we were gonna go net neutral, so we were gonna, we
Yes,
were
right.
going to cover our expenses and not put more money into
But
it.
some of the reasons that cost went
Is
is we
because of
bought
the-
the fence and the
Yeah, I
audio
certainly understand
equipment,
that.
and that would offset the difference, some of that difference.
I understand,
We
yeah.
we didn't authorize to throw money into it. It was what they carried over from ticket sales and everything that went. So it makes it look bad.
I understand the long, in
It
the
makes it,
short term,
making it
yep,
look bad because we bought this fencing
understand.
and the audio equipment.
yep.
I think right now, I think all calmer heads should prevail. Let Mike get done with what he's trying to do now, and then let's sit down and look at it. at that
So
point.
the way I took it as, we spent a roughly $148,000 last year, and we did have revenues of donations and ticket sales that brought it down to that 109. So I think that's where
I
the
s- okay,
48,000 comes
so
from.
what
So
I-
then you were
yeah.
okay with putting that revenue back in, and
Yes,
that's where that
right.
amount came from.
Okay, all right.
It was
so-
near there. I
Okay,
don't know
s-
if it was exact because we looked at the operations that we needed.
I got you.
But
I got
that's
you.
what I believe you're referring to.
That's, okay, so that is what I had intended, and so that's basically what you're saying, is that you had, let's just say it's 150,000, you did, 50,000 in revenue, so it got down to 100, and then we said, okay, we'll put another 50 back in, because that's what you had started from the zero. If it's zero is 150, then you're back to 100, and so now this year, we're still at 145, but that's after we put in all of that revenue from the year before, right? So
Yes.
we're currently sitting at the 145,
Correct.
whereas last year at this time, we were sitting at the 100. But even though we only put in,
Yes.
so we went back and, yeah, okay.
Just to confirm that, I pulled up the resolution from last year. That is the numbers that were in there. I mean, we rounded, but yes. 2022, the total expenses to kick it off was $149,855. The revenue brought in was $49,606.
Right,
So then we authorized $48,820 to be put back in,
right.
and then the revenue was estimated.
But we chewed up all of what we made, in a sense, on fencing and sound equipment and,
So of that
Well-
48,000 after revenue, we spent 11,000. That's how much we added on to it this year for that. But then on top of that, we were authorized to purchase that sound equipment and,
The sound and fence
fencing.
was not included in the 48,000.
yes.
gotcha, okay.
If
All right, so that's starting to make more sense, sorry.
It's confusing, it's,
I just have a few suggestions. If we go forward with this in the future, I would, towards the end of the month, when it's closer to Christmas, is when families are looking to do things. And, this is so far out this year from Christmas, I'd really like to see that following, at least the next following Saturday, even if we close down from the 18th and then the next Saturday following the 18th, have it open. No, that's the 22nd. I don't see the 24th schedule. The next Saturday after that we're gonna close down, it would only be like the 20th this year. And it would be closer to Christmas, because if you look at your attendance, your two biggest attendance days are the Saturday before Christmas, both years. And we didn't have it open the following weekend, which we could have one of those 2 years. And this year, I think we should strive, if we're gonna keep it open, to have Saturday and Sunday or Friday, Saturday open.
I heard-
I think you'll bring in a lot more revenue. If that's what we're trying to do, is bring in revenue, I think we need to find a way to get open closer to Christmas.
I agree, last year and the year before, I had people say that they were surprised that it stopped so far before
Right.
Christmas. And I know it's harder to get staffing, but if you're gonna do a business, you should be open at the busiest time of the year. It's like, it'd be like the
Exactly.
liquor store closed on Fridays and Saturdays.
Right.
It's
and-
also
exactly.
volunteers. So we rely on a lot of volunteers, so
Yeah.
it's also harder to
I
get
get
them.
it.
just
Yes,
an
I mean,
FYI.
the way I'm thinking about it, though, is that, I would like to get it, I think our pricing is too high.
Yeah.
I think it's not something that I think Public Works necessarily enjoys doing. I mean, not that it's not fun, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's, so does it takes a lot of time for our staff. And, I mean, I just, do we have to pay that money back? I mean, is it one of those things where it's a negative account, but I mean, you have, I mean, it's not like it's
if-
already gone at this point,
Yeah,
right?
if we pulled the plug tonight, let's just say hypothetically, right, we pulled the plug tonight and any negative balance that's in Fund 228 has to be addressed. There's a couple rules is that, one, it is the de facto on presented financials, right, when we get to year-end audit. Presented financials, it is de facto the obligation of the general fund. Now, that doesn't mean that council can't say, no, actually, we're going to use money from here or here, but until council does that, it is presumed to be the de facto responsibility of the general fund. The other part of that is that you can take as long as you want to fix that problem. The only time you really ever get stuck for having a timeline, it is really only if you are issuing bonds on a regular basis and you get to a ratings call and they ask you about it and potentially change your bond rating. That's not the situation we're in. In Granite Falls, that would have been, for me, that would have been a big concern, but we're not issuing bonds. So if council looks at, if council pulls the plug tonight and they're like, you know what, we're gonna spend the next 40 years paying this back. We're gonna put $1,500 aside each year. No one's even gonna know. Technically, there's nothing that prevents you from doing that.
Or how about park dedication funds? I mean, can that be used to cover something like this, or no?
I think some stuff, but we tried to kind of already piecemeal that out. That was one of the things I was looking at here in the pack. I was putting a P and a D next to some of these things that I think could just, the low-hanging fruit of, yeah, it may as well be park dedication funds, because it's going to get multiple use, like electrical upgrades. There's no way that's only Illuminate Isani. That should just be park dedication fees. Sound equipment going forward, that kind of stuff. There's no way that's only Illuminate Isani. That should just be park dedication. So there's some things like that that I think, and we've got this pot of money. We've got these apartment buildings coming in. We may as well be using it for stuff like that.
We could clean that up. I mean,
Help-
I just,
help
I think.
clean that up.
I'd like to get us back to, I mean, what, and Steve had said too, I mean, you originally wanted this to be a free event, and I remember talking, and I don't know if you and I voted the same on that, but I wanted it to be something where the businesses put up the displays and we just did the power or something, you know? and-
Or else the businesses gave money towards it.
Yeah.
How you're gonna store it,
But
that
what-
is.
Yeah, now I mean,
That's-
how much space are we using up over at PD with storage of illuminated
Travis
Sandy stuff?
really likes those lights. He loves it.
But I mean, my original thing was this was to be, like Bentleyville is a free thing. You paid to park, and then they have donation jars sitting all over. And you get corporate sponsorships, Target, Walmart, Costco.
Advertising.
They have all that all over. That was my initial intent for this whole thing. And it's free. You gotta pay to park, you pay to park. If there's 20 people in a car, you paid $5, doesn't matter, it's per car.
So what happened?
I mean,
One thing that we did discuss internally with staff is, because it had been brought up about doing a free day, and one thing that doesn't work out really well is to have a free day and other charge days just for the logistics of it. So we did sit down and go through numbers of having it become a free event. Now, I will give a caveat that if we do that, it is incredibly hard to go back. But I myself am not against it. I think it does take a lot of pressure off. A lot of what you see, what we haven't got to, is what we are going to ask for this year. Because one of the things in doing an event like this is we knew we were starting out small and we're trying to get bigger to make it be big and grand, because that's how it started. Now, if that's not the direction, so be it. But when you make it be a free event, we're still gonna put our heart and soul, and Public Works does a phenomenal job of building things and putting it together. But that pressure is a lot lower to make it bigger and grander every year, to give people this spectacular wow factor, because they aren't paying for it, but we will still make it spectacular, but there's just a different, I would say, involvement that we have to give financially to contribute to an event like that. So that number goes from, roughly that $40-some thousand that we'd ask you to invest to make it a great ticketed event that's spectacular this year. or we're talking about like 15,000 to just keep the lights on, and, I mean, we still have Public Works and staff's time involved, but we're not buying more, structures, we're just fixing ones that maybe got broke because of the elements and stuff like that. We can do some really creative things with our volunteers where they can accept donations if they want to come, and that's a fun community thing. We can morph it into something different if that's what council wants options on.
So-
And I don't think sponsorship's gonna go away, because
Yeah.
the sponsor, when they sponsor something, they're not getting anything in return other than having what they have out there with their name on the lights.
I mean,
So
I
the
think,
number
I think
one-
maybe we should talk to the chamber or something and see if we can get them to organize some kind of a group that, I mean, they can take all of our lights and go store them somewhere. I'd love to see it still continue to go, but I'd love for us to be out of it.
So the number one thing of marketing
think?
is all impressions. So I think, I mean, if you look at these numbers, we're, what was it, 23,000 in ticket sales or whatever. At the end of the day, that's not that much. I think you can actually make a lot more money through sponsorship if you have much higher attendance numbers. Like, look at Bentleyville. So say if I owned a business and 3,000 people came to this, and you only get 3,000 impressions, that's not that meaningful to me. Versus if you have 30,000 because it's free, that's 10 times the impressions. So that's, last year I brought it up that we should just do it on donations or sponsorship like that, because I wanted to go that direction, because advertising is very valuable. I work in that space and I see it all the time, and I had a couple of suggestions on our sponsorship thing too, but I think it's really important that we focus more on the sponsorship and less on the actual ticket sales money, because at the end of the day, I think the ticket sales at $12 is too expensive. People aren't gonna come back twice. People are underwhelmed. So like Josie had said, if you have a lower or no price, there's really not much expectation. You're not gonna be upset about, spending $13 on top of the taxes funding it initially, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my impression is last year I was there on opening day, and it was, I mean, staff did a lot of work and a lot of effort, but it's not big enough to justify that price point.
Right,
And
agreed.
I understand it has to be at that price point to try to grow it, and we don't want to continue to put money and sink money into this thing, but I mean, I just felt sick to my stomach walking around there, because I thought, boy, I would never want to pay this much to bring my family here, and I only have, it took maybe 45 minutes to an hour to go through, and it was nice, but I mean, that's not a long enough time to justify that expense. you
I've
know what I
heard
mean?
that both years now, and
Yeah.
I think we can't keep going the direction we're going, so we gotta try something drastically different. I personally think the free, and then work on more sponsorship, because if we're getting those sorts of donations now with only 3,000 people attending, and it's free, you're gonna get way more than that. So you're gonna have more value to these sponsors, and I think sponsors will step up more, because obviously I don't think what we're doing is ever really gonna pay it back, because I think the numbers are gonna keep dropping. Every year, people are like, well, I've already seen it. It wasn't worth the money. That's what I've heard since day one about it, so.
I'd like to see all the scenarios. After your audit, I would like you to, if you had
Yeah.
time, to look at numbers, like if we did charge for 1 or maybe 2 more years and then make it a free event, if that digs us a little more out of the hole, and look at maybe some guesstimates of extending it a few more days. Being a new guy on here, I don't know if I would approve this at the beginning either.
I wouldn't have. There's no way.
And I voted against it at the beginning, because I wanted it to be a free event where I was okay with the city putting the power in for it, but then I wanted the businesses to put up their own light displays, so that way they're storing their stuff. They can advertise, I mean, that's out in Williston, North Dakota, that was how they did it, and it was a drive-through one in the park there, but I mean, you had the businesses put the displays together, and so then all we would have had to done was just supply the power, and it would have been a free event, and yeah, it wouldn't have been a huge deal, but I mean, it would have been something, and I think that
agree.
would have been okay. And I just think I really would like to see us get our staff out of this business, and I don't know how we can do that, or if there's a group out there that might want to take a project like this on, but I mean, Bentleyville, I think, that's not a city-ran thing or anything like that. It's just a private group that puts it together, right?
Yeah,
I have no
Bentleyville was
idea.
originally just a dude that decorated his front yard. and it just
Kinda
got
grew into that.
thoroughly out of hand.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, there's gotta be somebody in
Doing
town
really
here
well
that maybe
for
would wanna,
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's crazy as that sounds, that's how it started, yeah.
Be nice to look at all the scenarios, and at least
Yep.
make a solid decision on this.
yeah, yeah. But I'd like to see, I guess, maybe explore some options like that too. I mean,
Sure. I
and-
agree.
And just to get the space back at the police department and get our public works time back and get our staff time back, and
I think there's a lot to be said for what I'm hearing from the council, right? So one of the things back in college, one of these case studies you had was, I think it was probably in 1970s, New York subway. Wasn't making money, you know, they tried to charge a little bit more, you know, and back then you're talking like 25 cents or something for a ride or whatever. And so City of New York, in their infinite wisdom, hired consultants. They studied the problem, they came back and they said, well, if you want to make more money on your subway, you should lower the price. And they were like, well, we can't do that. And they were like, well, actually, you shouldn't just lower the price. You should actually lower the price a lot. Like from $1 per ride to 25 cents per ride, like a giant drop. And it did actually work out. They did actually get into the black of doing that, even though it is counterintuitive. Yeah.
It's price elasticity.
It was and also then anecdotally in a personal life, I had a friend of mine used to own a pizza place in Buffalo. And he'd get to the end of the month, and if he didn't make enough money at the end of the month, he'd always say to me, well, if I didn't make enough money the prior month, that means I have to lower my prices.
It's price
Which again-
elasticity.
Which
yeah.
again is it's counterintuitive, but he understood that I need more people, so it needs to cost less.
I don't disagree with Mike. I mean, same thing you hear with like kittens too, right? A free kitten, nobody wants, charge for the kitten. That must be great. But one thing with this is there's a lot of operation costs that go, if we were even gonna charge $1 for a ticket, the cost of the staff to be there, the ticketing software, the processing fees, I don't know, which we can do the numbers. I think it's not a bad idea to make sure that we are looking at all the different options. But there's a lot that go into operations that are not, I mean, they're hard costs of we can't get away from it if we're even doing $1.
yeah, I mean, do you really wanna be busier with this thing? I mean, I really think we should, I mean, I'm okay with your guys' suggestion too, and let's look at some other options numbers-wise, but I think the big thing would be, let's try to find somebody that maybe wants to take this over, and they got a big supply of lights to work with, and maybe some nonprofit will come up with some ideas, and they can raise money for a charity or something like that, but
Stop the bleeding.
we
If
gotta
it's
stop the
costing
bleeding at some
taxpayer
point.
money, I'm with you 100%. But if there's a way in the next year or two that it does not cost taxpayer money, maybe it's something we want to look at. That's where I'm sitting on it.
Yeah, and I think, let's look at
Are you
those two
looking to
options,
expand
and,
it?
What?
Are you looking to expand it at the same time, or just let it run its current
That's
course?
the options I'd like to see, I guess. I
Because-
mean, is a snow machine, could we use that for park dedication funds? Because we definitely should have one before fall time, because the sliding hill could have used it, and we could have sprayed the whole Luminate Isani field there, and it would have
Cambridge
looked
could
a
have
lot
rented
better.
it too this year, cause they had Winterfest up there.
That
Sure.
did affect the turnout. People said they didn't wanna go because didn't feel like Christmas or winter. So
Yeah,
it does affect the
California
turnout.
winter.
I think that's
Yeah.
something we should use
And
the
we talked
park
about that for the
dedication
sledding
funds
hill
for
anyways.
sure.
So my question is, if we did go forward with this, what is the long-term trajectory? Like, where are you gonna put all
Exactly,
these displays?
that's what I want to see.
I don't think Travis wants any more of his police station taken up, and there's just no room
I
to
remember,
store this stuff.
I thought, like what Jimmy said, I thought what was supposed to happen was the people that sponsored this, the light had to do something with it, they're on their own. I thought that's what we had.
no, I
Yes,
will
they
say that I
realize.
think, I always commend the staff on, they do everything that we ask, and this is like the one thing I
Yeah.
feel like that didn't quite go as planned.
Right, I agree.
Was having the donation people buy their own displays and store them, but
You know what happened? Businesses realized they didn't want.
they didn't want to.
Joke's on us.
So, Council, so staff's gonna come up with more information, more scenarios of how this potentially could play out, and we'll bring it back to council on March 19th. If we can get it sooner, we will, the first one, but with that audit time, we'll shoot for the 19th, but we're gonna do it at council as a discussion as a business item, if you're okay with that, because we will want to probably vote at that meeting of how we wanna go, and if we don't have a consensus, then everybody will have their say, and if you
And some
think that that's
really
appropriate.
Really clear numbers, easy to understand numbers on this.
Until then, no more spending? Is that,
No, we haven't spent anything.
We
This,
won't spend
okay.
yeah,
Well, really clear numbers and also hopefully maybe somebody that wants to take the whole thing over.
we can look into that as well.
And,
If
Just
someone
a-
writes an article looking for, no, just kidding.
just a quick,
We will reach out to some people as well, but I actually don't, I see the value in that, and I think having community input, and I think we will get people in there if they know that this is, hey, free for everyone come help and do it as a community build type thing, isn't a bad idea, but I think without having to have the elements of the fence, if it's free, we don't have to put up the fence, and there's a lot less operational costs when it becomes free, that it does still even take a lot of pressure and a lot of time off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I wanna just get rid of it completely, or I wanna, kill Illuminate Isani or anything like that, but I mean, I just, you know what I'm saying, I guess. and-
reallocation?
yes,
Well, if you ever
yeah,
wanna
I mean,
get
I'd
rid of
still
the
like for it to
fencing.
happen, but I just would like to approach it differently.
I've already been approached by a business that said if you ever didn't need that fencing for illuminating, they'd purchase it. And I'm dead serious. They
We
wanna
like
buy
the
it.
fencing, we just don't wanna put it up at Illuminate, but that
All
is
right.
useful.
All right, well, you guys got a
Turf
sense,
war,
you got a
turf
sense of direction, I think, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So E6, door postings and disconnects, this is Mike, I believe, right?
This is, I'll apologize. I've been so busy with the audit, I looked at this memo and I realized that is the most non-concise memo.
I thought it was good.
Okay, good, because my first thought was maybe,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys even wanted to,
Yep.
you guys have any ideas on discussing it and stuff? I mean, if you had a chance to read it, I think it makes sense. You're gonna collect the money one way or another. I
we're gonna
mean,
collect it one way or another, and no matter what, eventually, Isanti's gonna be big enough that we are not going to be able to do disconnects. It just becomes logistically not possible.
I would not wanna be one of those public works guys
And-
going out there disconnecting the thing and then trying to run up to the door and post it before you get shot in